It is a rainy day. It's the customary Thanksgiving Canadian weekend that we get our first real fall storms. And with fall storms means that winter is not far behind. Some other things to think about before winter comes.
Going in with a real focused tunnel vision on what needs to be done so that you don't get overwhelmed by all the things that you want to get done.
Well, we've got a little bit of a break in the weather and it's still raining, but we figured we'd bring this outside to kind of discuss it because this is a list video. And the whole point of this is if you are homesteading in Canada, winter's always coming because winter is kind of the deciding season, for lack of a better way to put it. So we have some things to do and we have our list. Now our list does consist of some things that we want to do or would like to do, but it also has a few things on it that we absolutely have to do, the must do. So we're going to focus mostly on the must do because we know it's coming.
And the one thing that happens with the list, as everybody knows, is it's ever changing, ever evolving, and it always gets added to.
And it doesn't always ever get done.
Exactly. We're going to start right in the heart of it, the part that I think probably has the most work to be done and is probably the most pressing, and that is the garden. Because not only do we still have stuff to harvest, I mean, we've got so many tomatoes, we still have our corn. We'll show you a few things here. We're not going to go into all of it, but there's all that to harvest. But we also this year have vowed we're going to get all the weeds out of here. We're going to pull it all out and start from scratch, because what's happened consistently over the years is volunteering. And as you can see down here, we've got cherry tomatoes. There's cherry tomatoes growing in this bed. There's cherry tomatoes growing in this bed, and cherry tomatoes growing where they're supposed to be. And this is a problem that we kind of have ongoing because we never actually get the raised beds all cleared out, or any of the gardens all cleared out for that matter. So this year we're hoping that's a big one for us, getting everything out of the garden so that maybe, just maybe next year, the weeds won't be quite as bad. The tomatoes are still going strong. This year I have decided I am not covering tomatoes. When the frost comes, the frost comes. I'm done. But we're still working on picking what's available now while it's still good. But there are a lot of things that are still going to stay in the garden. The celery, the lettuce, the turnips, that sort of stuff. We're not pulling that out fast, but we are going to be using it throughout the fall and getting it out. No longer for this year are we going to cover anything and keep it going. But it's wonderful to have those fall crops that are still producing when other things start to get a little bit slim. Although it's kind of hard to imagine that right now as we're standing in this garden that is so full of stuff and it's starting to rain on us and we know it's coming and winter is not what we want yet.
So the big thing with the garden list is this is not an expansion or change or anything like that. This is just a maintenance list. All we want to do is finish the harvest, which we do every year, and get it cleaned up so that come next
Which we
spring,
don't do any year.
Well,
Don't lie, don't lie.
So this is a good example of sort of those list items where it's going to be a list item every year, because if you're going to grow your gardens, you're going to have to do that maintenance. The next item on our list is chicken coops. So for anybody who's followed along for a while, we have several small little outbuildings, most of which we actually moved here from where we used to live, which if you want to see that exodus, we can link the video up above. Essentially what happened, we moved everything here, all these little buildings, and we have done very little on them. So as you can see from the one behind me here, they're in need of a little bit of TLC. We've got to do some stuff to the roofs, we've got to do some stuff to walls, doors, kind of you name it. So it's not going to get done for every single coop we have, but we are going to pick 3 to 4 of them and we're just going to get it done. And like the garden and the garden cleanup, actually maybe even more so than the garden cleanup, this is an absolute must, because if we don't get it done, some of these are in pretty rough shape, particularly the roofs. And if we don't get it done, that's going to be an issue next year. So this one is a pretty high priority on the to-do list for fall.
So far we've talked about gardens, chicken coops, but another huge job that has to happen this fall is organizing the rabbits. The rabbits is kind of like chicken math. It's gotten a little bit of creep. And I believe we're at about 60 rabbits now, which they're not all staying, of course. First thing we need to do is organize butchering, but we also want to build some more of our hutches. There will be a video on the design and whatnot when we do that, and get them out of the tractors. As you can see here, these bunnies are still doing great in the tractors because so far the grass is still growing, but that's about to change too as the weather turns on us. So we need to get a little bit more organized with the rabbits and figure out just what our plan is. We started this time last year on a larger barn, a maternity barn, that sort of thing, that we were going to put the does in to grow out their babies. And as you can see, it made it this far last year, and that's all we got done. So maybe we'll come back to that this year, although it's not the priority this fall, as opposed to getting some hutches done and obviously butchering. But stay tuned to see what happens with the rabbits, because we definitely want to make sure we get a little more content for you guys on that subject.
So the last real need actually isn't so much for the farm as our own house. We need to do the fascia and a little bit of other minor work on the house, because we've put it off for, in all fairness, for the last few years, but we weren't really able to do this in the summertime because there is quite the nest of wasps in the behind the fascia board. So we have to wait until it's cooler. Now, that's a smaller job in the grand scheme of things, but it still needs to be done. So that kind of concludes the needs, but we have a couple of wants that we really would like to get to this fall, and one of them is behind me here. This is an old carport that we actually put together 2 years ago, if you can imagine, and it's been sitting here in this state, half put together, since we did that 2 falls ago. This will make some really nice growing space if we actually get this done, what we're thinking. We have a plan, we know what we would like to do, but we just haven't got there. So this want might not happen in its entirety, to be fair, but if we can make some progress on it this fall, i.e. before winter really sets in, that would be fantastic. So we will see how we do with that.
We started out this video in the green chairs talking about the fact that we were going to be doing a list of all the things we need to do. And that is something that we do every year. And every year we only achieve maybe 30 or 40%. And that's why we've decided this year to have the focus on things and then the what we would maybe like to try and achieve. And the barn is a huge, we'd really like to achieve one. But the nice thing about the barn is we can actually work on that in the winter time. When it's raining like now, we could be working, and of course we're not, we're videoing, but we could be working on the barn. The one thing I'm going to say is I'm actually too embarrassed to take you into the barn because it is an absolute tip. It's a disaster. There is stuff everywhere. It's a huge project. And to be honest, I think it's going to be a total reno video, because taking it from what it is now to what we visualize in our mind in order to be able to milk these sheep next year is going to be quite a feat, I think. But as I touch on the topic of the sheep are the one thing this year that I would say we're going into the fall pretty smooth sailing. And that's a good feeling. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always the want of doing some more fencing and the want of doing some more shearing, but those aren't necessities. And this year going in with basically 4 necessities actually feels achievable. And that's something that we've really changed this year, is going in with a real focused tunnel vision on what needs to be done so that you don't get overwhelmed by all the things that you want to get done.